The sun was bleeding orange across the horizon, painting Route 66 in molten gold. Jessica Jess Morales sat behind the wheel of her rig, the Iron Lady, her hands firm on the worn leather. She was a woman who had fought for every mile she drove, breaking into an industry dominated by men, earning respect through grit, skill, and sheer determination. The highway stretched endlessly before her, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the desolate Midwestern plains, and for a moment, there was peace. But peace, Jess had learned long ago, was fragile. A low rumble began to build behind her, faint at first, like distant thunder. Then it grew louder. Engines, hundreds of horses under chrome and steel, closing in with alarming speed. Jess's heart rate quickened as she checked the rearview mirror. A pack of bikers was barreling down on her. Leather jackets gleamed in the last sunlight, chains clinking, patches reflecting like warning signs. She exhaled slowly, gripping the wheel tighter. Her mind ran through every scenario she had prepared for. Road rage, intimidation, harassment. She had dealt with it before. But the look in the lead biker's eyes sent a chill down her spine. It wasn't just play. There was malice there. The leader revved his engine, a wolf snarl of mechanical power, and one of his companions tossed a bottle, shattering against the asphalt inches from her rig. Jess's pulse surged. Glass glittered like sharp teeth, but she was safe for now. Her fingers brushed a small photograph taped to the dashboard. Max and Roxy, her police-trained German shepherds, their eyes alert, ears perked, ready. Not today, she muttered under her breath, a whisper that carried steel. The bikers swerved, forming a semicircle around her truck. Jess's instinct screamed, "Don't panic, don't make sudden moves, but don't give them the satisfaction of fear." She eased her rig to a stop near an empty rest area, where the shadows of rusted vending machines and cracked asphalt stretched long and menacing under flickering streetlights. Engines idled and echoed across the silent highway, a chorus of intimidation. The leader dismounted, tall and broad, his leather jacket heavy with symbols of gang loyalty. "Lost, little lady?" His tone was venom wrapped in amusement. The others circled like predators testing a cornered prey. Jess exhaled, steadying herself. She didn't reach for a weapon. Her protection wasn't in steel or fire. It was in Max and Roxy. She pressed the button on her radio, a simple click, and their familiar barks erupted from the sleeper cab, sharp, controlled, commanding. The bikers froze, their laughter faltering as they saw the dogs leap into the open. Max's frame was powerful, muscles coiled like springs, and Roxy's stance was rigid, eyes locking on the alpha biker. Jess stepped from the cab, hands empty, but posture firm. "You touch me, my truck, or my team, and you'll regret it," she warned, her voice low but unwavering. Her dogs mirrored her resolve, each movement perfectly synchronized, trained to respond to the smallest signal. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to stop. The wind carried the smell of asphalt and exhaust, the tension thick enough to taste. One biker shifted nervously, doubt flickering across his face. Another reached for a chain dangling from his belt, and Jess's breath hitched not from fear, but anticipation. She knew how close danger could get before it became chaos. She glanced at her rearview mirror, noting the empty horizon behind them, the sun now a sliver over the plains. Route 66 had always been about freedom, about the open road, but right now, it was a battlefield. Jess's eyes met the leader's. He smirked, trying to project control, but the hard set of her jaw, the rigid precision of her dogs, told him a different story. The bikers' engines rumbled again, a low growl of impatience. Jess's fingers brushed the cab door instinctively, feeling the weight of her partners. Max and Roxy's barks rose sharply, synchronized perfectly with her next step forward. The leader jerked back slightly, caught off guard. A dangerous glint flashed in his eyes, but Jess didn't flinch. She wasn't just a truck driver. She was a woman who had fought every inch of her life to claim respect on the road, and she wasn't about to let a pack of reckless bikers take that away. End of part 1 suspense. The leader biker revved his engine again and motioned for his friends to block her path. Jess's pulse raced as she realized this wasn't just intimidation anymore. They were planning to corner her, and she knew, deep down, that the showdown was about to begin. The hum of engines grew louder, echoing off the cracked asphalt and empty buildings of the rest area. Jess's heart hammered, but her hands on the wheel remained steady. She could feel the tension radiating from the bikers surrounding her rig. They weren't just reckless, they were looking for a fight. The leader biker, a broad-shouldered man with a jagged scar across his cheek, stepped closer, the echo of his boots against concrete matching the rumble of the motorcycles. Thought you could roll through our stretch of road without a greeting, huh? He sneered, his eyes glinting under the flickering streetlight. His companions chuckled, circling her truck like wolves testing their prey. Jess didn't flinch. Her pulse surged with adrenaline, but her training kept her grounded. She pressed the button on her handheld radio again. From the sleeper cab came a sharp bark, followed by Max and Roxy emerging into the open. Their appearance was sudden and commanding, muscles coiled, fur bristling, eyes fixed on the bikers. The leader's grin faltered. "Dogs, you got dogs," he muttered, disbelief creeping into his voice. "They're not pets," Jess said, stepping out of the cab, her voice steady and deliberate. "They're trained professionals, and they protect what's theirs." Her eyes locked on his, unwavering. Max growled, a low, menacing sound that vibrated through the air. Roxy stepped slightly forward, positioning herself to block any sudden move. Jess mirrored their stance, calm, controlled, yet unmistakably ready. The bikers exchanged nervous glances. The humor in their eyes had vanished, replaced with the subtle unease of men who had underestimated their opponent. One of the bikers, younger, less experienced, fidgeted with a chain hanging from his belt. "Step back, boys," the leader said sharply, though the tension in his voice betrayed him. "She's just a girl with dogs." Jess didn't move. Her voice was low but carried authority. "I said, don't touch my truck. Don't touch me. One wrong move, and you'll regret it." She didn't raise her hands aggressively. She didn't need to. Her presence, combined with Max and Roxy, was more than enough. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by the faint hum of the idle engines. Jess could feel the biker sizing her up, trying to determine whether she was bluffing. She held her ground, her eyes scanning each one, reading their body language and nervous twitch. The hesitant hand, the half-step backward. She had been in situations like this before. The road had a way of teaching lessons through intimidation, testing courage and patience. Suddenly, the leader made a move, stepping closer with a mock-threatening posture. Jess tensed, her breath catching slightly, but she didn't panic. Max shifted in front of her, growling louder, while Roxy's teeth glinted under the dim light. Jess clicked her tongue, a sharp, precise sound. Both dogs responded instantly, their positioning flawless, cutting off any route forward for the bikers. The leader froze mid-step, the grin on his face replaced by a flicker of fear. He glanced at his companions. Their confidence had vanished. Even the youngest biker, the one with the chain, hesitated, doubt flashing across his face. Jess's heart pounded not from fear, but from the raw intensity of the moment. Every second stretched longer than the last. "You're wasting your time," Jess said calmly. "These aren't pets. They're professionals, and they will protect me." Her words were steady, controlled, but her message was clear. She wasn't bluffing. A tense minute passed. The wind blew across the deserted lot, carrying the smell of exhaust and asphalt. Jess felt the silent rhythm of her dogs beside her, every muscle poised, every sense alert. The leader muttered something under his breath, but his friends exchanged anxious glances. Something in them had changed. They now realized this wasn't a girl afraid of being outnumbered. This was a woman who had trained, prepared, and wasn't about to back down. Then, a sudden shift. A younger biker made a step toward the cab door, maybe thinking to intimidate, maybe to steal something. Max reacted instantly, his stance widening, growl escalating into a roar that seemed to shake the air itself. Roxy moved in tandem, blocking any approach. Jess's voice rang out sharply, "Stop, now." The biker froze mid-step, eyes wide. The tension in the air was electric, thick enough to choke on. Jess's gaze never left the leader. He sneered, trying to regain composure, but the reality was clear. Their intimidation had failed. And now, the balance of power had shifted. Jess realized the bikers weren't going to back down completely. They were testing her limits, waiting for a crack, but she wasn't about to give them one. One wrong move from either side, and chaos could erupt. The real test was just beginning. The night air was thick with tension, heavy with the smell of asphalt and gasoline. Jess stood firmly on the cracked concrete of the deserted rest stop, her boots planted like anchors. Her eyes locked on the biker leader. Max and Roxy flanked her, bodies taut with coiled strength, muscles rippling under the dim light. Their growls cut through the silence like thunder, controlled yet menacing. A warning that spoke louder than words ever could. The leader stepped closer, his confidence wavering as he tried to mask it behind a sneer. "You really think those dogs are gonna scare us off?" He taunted, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. You're all alone out here. A little bark and Roxy let out a low, precise growl that silenced him mid-sentence. Her stance was impeccable, every line of her body radiating readiness. Max's eyes locked onto the leader, unwavering, as he positioned himself slightly ahead, his body a clear barrier. The leader's bravado faltered for a heartbeat, and Jess seized the moment. I don't need weapons to handle this, Jess said calmly, her tone firm, carrying an authority born from years of discipline and experience. Touch the truck, touch me, or underestimate my team and you'll regret it. Big time, for the first time, doubt crept into the biker's eyes. He glanced at his friends, all circling the truck with tense posture, hesitant movements. The pack had confidence before, but now they were starting to realize they were outmatched not by firepower or numbers, but by precision, training, and a calm, fearless resolve. One biker, younger and visibly skittish, fiddled with the chain hanging from his belt. The leader shot him a sharp look, but the hesitation had already infected the group. Jess noticed every small detail, the twitch of a shoulder, the shift in stance, the way their laughter had died. Then, the leader lunged forward, a test of courage and dominance. Jess froze for a split second, heart racing. Max reacted instantly, moving with the fluid grace of a trained professional, his massive frame blocking the leader's path. Roxy mirrored him, cutting off any escape or flanking maneuver. The growls intensified, sharp and precise, the dog's synchronization flawless. Jess's voice rang out, crisp and commanding. Stop, right now. The leader jerked to a halt, taken aback by the perfect timing. His sneer faltered, and for a moment, all the confidence he had built evaporated. Max and Roxy held their positions, muscles coiled and ready, eyes locked with unbreakable focus. The leader's gang could see clearly now. These weren't ordinary dogs, and Jess wasn't an ordinary driver. A bead of sweat ran down the leader's forehead. His friend shuffled uneasily, clearly reassessing the situation. Jess could feel the tension thrumming through the air, thick enough to taste. Time seemed to stretch, every second loaded with the weight of possibility. One wrong step could ignite chaos, but for now, she had the upper hand. Jess took a measured step forward, her gaze never leaving the leader. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, but her posture and tone remained controlled. I suggest you reconsider your choices, she said, voice low but resolute. This isn't a bluff. These dogs are trained to handle threats. You will not get past them. The leader's lips twitched, as if debating whether to escalate or retreat. His hand brushed against the chain again, hesitating. One miscalculation, and Max and Roxy wouldn't hesitate to subdue him. Jess's heart pounded, but she didn't flinch. This was a test of nerves, and she had trained herself and her team to be unshakable. Suddenly, a biker took a half step toward the truck's cab, perhaps thinking to intimidate or steal something. Max growled, low and controlled, while Roxy positioned herself to intercept. The dog's movements were a perfect dance of threat and restraint, calculated to warn, not harm unnecessarily. Jess stepped forward slightly, reinforcing their presence with her calm authority. The leader froze mid-step, eyes darting to his friends. Fear flickered across his face, a rare crack in the armor of a man used to instilling fear. Jess knew the moment was pivotal. One wrong move from him, or any of his gang, could escalate into a confrontation none of them were prepared for. She held her gaze steady, feeling the quiet power radiating from her dogs. This ends now, she said, every word deliberate. Walk away, or face the consequences. Your choice. The leader hesitated, muscles coiled as if ready to fight, but he didn't move. His friends shifted uneasily, unsure whether to back him or the woman and her deadly, loyal dogs. The tension was unbearable, like the calm before a storm. Jess realized this standoff wasn't over yet. One misstep could ignite chaos, and she had to stay perfectly in control. The night had deepened, casting long, jagged shadows across the cracked asphalt of the rest stop. Jess stood firm, Max and Roxy flanking her with unshakable precision, their sharp eyes tracking every twitch, every subtle movement of the bikers. The roar of idle engines filled the silence, a chorus of intimidation, but Jess's presence, reinforced by the disciplined power of her dogs, was louder. The leader shifted uneasily, his scarred face illuminated by a flickering street lamp. You think a couple of dogs can handle us? He sneered, though his voice wavered slightly. Step aside, little lady, before this gets messy. Jess didn't flinch. They're not just dogs, she said, her voice calm but steel strong. They're trained to protect, and they'll do it without hesitation. Her gaze swept over the bikers. assessing each one, fear hiding behind bravado, uncertainty beneath the tough exterior. Suddenly, the youngest biker, the one who had been fidgeting nervously with his chain, made the mistake of stepping closer to the truck's cab. Max reacted instantly, his massive frame sliding into the younger biker's path with silent precision. Roxy mirrored him, cutting off any attempt to circle around. Their growls escalated, not chaotic, but controlled and menacing, a clear signal that they were ready to act if provoked. Jess clicked her tongue sharply. Both dogs froze for a heartbeat, waiting for her signal. The younger biker froze too, his bravado gone, replaced by a creeping, undeniable fear. The leader scowled, tension writ large across his face. He gestured sharply, whispering commands to his gang, but the control he had once wielded evaporated under the disciplined, almost mechanical coordination of Max and Roxy. Jess stepped forward slowly, never taking her eyes off the leader. Each word she spoke was deliberate, measured. "You've got a choice," she said. "Back off, or you find out exactly how professional they are. I promise you won't like it." The leader's jaw tightened. He tried to maintain his intimidating posture, but even he couldn't ignore the growing dread in his gut. His friends shifted uneasily, the subtle retreating steps betraying their instinct for self-preservation. Jess could feel the shift in power. The balance had tipped, and she held the upper hand. A tense silence stretched across the rest area. The only sounds were the occasional clink of chain and the soft panting of the dogs. Then, one of the bikers made a sudden, reckless move, stepping toward the cab with a gesture meant to provoke. Max and Roxy moved as one. Max stepped forward, his body a living wall between the biker and Jess. Roxy mirrored him perfectly, creating a crossfire of physical presence that blocked every potential attack. The bikers stopped, realization dawning they were no match for trained, disciplined partners working seamlessly with their human leader. Jess exhaled slowly, letting the tension build. "You see," she said softly, almost conversationally, "this isn't a threat. This is training. A single misstep, and things get serious. Your choice is simple: leave or face the consequences." The leader's eyes flicked to his gang, and for a brief moment, Jess saw a glimmer of doubt. One by one, the bikers adjusted their posture, some stepping back slightly. Their confidence had been dismantled not with weapons, but with focus, discipline, and control. Jess could almost hear the thought forming in their minds: maybe this wasn't worth it. The wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of exhaust and asphalt, rustling the edges of the vending machines nearby. Jess kept her stance firm, her eyes never leaving the leader. Max and Roxy remained perfectly synchronized, growls subsiding into sharp warnings, muscles taut and ready. Jess could sense the fear mingled with hesitation in the bikers, an unstable combination that could either provoke retreat or ignite confrontation. The leader hesitated, his hand twitching near the chain again, a last-ditch attempt to regain control. Jess's heart pounded not with fear, but anticipation. She could see the tension vibrating through his gang, their uncertainty now visible. "Rah!" The moment had arrived. The leader finally spoke, a harsh whisper, his voice laced with both anger and disbelief. "You'll regret this," he said. But Jess knew his words were empty, his threats hollow. Yet, something in his tone hinted that this wasn't over. The bikers might back off for now. But the confrontation had only escalated. Jess's pulse quickened as she realized that the real challenge, the true test of control and skill, was just beginning. The night hung heavy over the rest stop, every flickering street lamp casting elongated shadows that danced like predators across the asphalt. Jess stood with perfect poise, Max and Roxy rigid at her sides, each breath measured, each muscle coiled like a spring. The biker leader's smirk had vanished entirely, replaced by a subtle, uneasy twitch of his jaw. The others shuffled behind him, unsure, caught between pride and the rising fear that this confrontation was no longer in their favor. The youngest biker, still fidgeting with his chain, suddenly lunged, perhaps hoping to provoke, perhaps thinking he could catch Jess off guard. Max reacted instantly, moving with fluid precision. His massive frame blocked the biker's path before the motion was even complete, teeth bared in a controlled snarl. Roxy mirrored him, circling to cut off any escape, her eyes blazing under the dim light. The synchronized movement of the dogs was flawless, almost choreographed, a living, breathing barrier of power and discipline. Jess's hand shot out, catching the biker's chain mid-swing. The metal clattered harmlessly to the ground, but the message was clear. She wasn't afraid, and she wasn't losing control. The leader flinched, his body stiffening as he realized the tide had fully turned. Jess's calm, authoritative tone sliced through the tension like a knife. "You do not touch my truck. You do not touch me. You do not test my team," she said firmly. "One more move, and you'll regret it." The leader's eyes flicked to his gang. Their uncertainty was now tangible, etched into every nervous twitch and hesitant movement. The veneer of bravado they had carried across Route 66 had crumbled entirely. Jess felt the quiet satisfaction of dominance, but she didn't allow herself to relax. Chaos was still a possibility, and one wrong move could ignite it. Max growled low, a warning that resonated through the empty lot. Roxy advanced slightly, her body language saying, without words, that any aggression would be met with precision force. Jess could feel the dog's energy vibrating through her own body, a mix of adrenaline and focus that sharpened her instincts. The leader hesitated, then lunged suddenly, perhaps thinking he could reclaim control. In a split second, Max and Roxy moved as one, intercepting him with perfect timing. Max pinned the biker's arm gently, but firmly, not to injure, but to assert dominance. Roxy circled, ensuring no escape route, teeth bared in a controlled snarl. Jess stepped fully into the open, her presence a human shield and command center all at once. "You see what I mean?" she said quietly, her voice calm, but laced with authority. "They are professionals. They protect what's theirs. You won't get past them, and I won't let you touch a thing." The leader froze, eyes wide, lips parting to speak, but finding no words. His friends shuffled nervously, glancing at one another, their earlier confidence gone, replaced by fear and disbelief. Jess could see the internal struggle, pride battling survival instinct. It was a delicate balance, one that would determine whether the night ended peacefully or in chaos. She exhaled slowly, letting the tension stretch, allowing the bikers to fully absorb the reality of the situation. The wind blew faintly, carrying the smell of asphalt and exhaust. Every sound the distant hum of engines. The soft growl of the dogs was amplified in the tense silence. Jess didn't move, didn't speak further. Her calm authority, combined with the lethal precision of her dogs, was enough to keep the bikers frozen in place. Finally, the leader's voice broke the silence, sharp and begrudging. We'll back off. This isn't over, though." His words were a hollow threat, lacking conviction, betraying the fear he could not suppress. Slowly, his gang began to retreat, shuffling backwards, eyes never leaving Jess and her dogs. Jess watched them go, muscles tense, ready for any last-minute aggression. Max and Roxy remained in position, growls fading to low rumbles, maintaining alertness. Only when the bikers were a safe distance away did she release her posture slightly. Exhaling deeply, she stepped back toward her truck, her mind racing, but her body still poised for action. The night was far from over. The road was unpredictable, and danger was never truly gone. But for now, Jess had proven her strength, her skill, and the unwavering loyalty of her to partners. As she climbed into the Iron Lady, Jess's eyes flicked to the horizon. Somewhere out there, another shadow could be forming a test, a threat, or a challenge. She knew this night wasn't over. Max and Roxy sat alert beside her, ready for the next move. Jess gritted her teeth, heart pounding. Whoever came next would find that she and her team were not to be underestimated. The night air was crisp as Jess climbed back into the Iron Lady. Her boots hit the metal step with a deliberate, controlled rhythm. Max and Roxy followed, slipping into their positions in the sleeper cab with disciplined efficiency. Tails low, but eyes alert. The engine roared to life, vibrations thrumming through the steering wheel like a heartbeat, echoing her own adrenaline. Every muscle in her body was coiled, ready. The bikers might have retreated for now, but the road had a way of testing resilience, and Jess knew better than to trust a temporary reprieve. She shifted gears smoothly, the truck lurching forward onto the empty highway. The asphalt stretched like a black ribbon into the darkness, dotted with the occasional glow of distant lights. Route 66 had always been about freedom, speed, and solitude, but tonight it felt like a battlefield. Jess's eyes scanned the mirrors, tracking the distant taillights of retreating bikers. They were gone, for now. Max growled softly, a low, alert rumble, and Roxy's ears pricked. Jess's fingers tightened on the wheel, sensing the dog's unease. She knew them well enough to understand that this wasn't just routine vigilance. They smelled more than she could, saw more than she could, sensed danger lingering beyond her line of sight. A mile down the road, a faint dust cloud appeared on the horizon. Jess squinted, her pulse quickening. Another group, or the same bikers regrouping for another attempt? Her instinct screamed caution. She flicked the switch on her radio, calling for a check-in with the local highway patrol. Unit 12, Route 66, southbound. Possible harassment situation. Keep eyes open for a biker pack. Over. No response yet, just the hum of the channel. She cursed under her breath. Max shifted beside her, glancing at her as if confirming her next move. Jess exhaled, taking a measured breath. She knew she couldn't outrun trouble forever, but she could control the road in front of her. She adjusted the mirrors, accelerated gradually, and let the steady roar of the Iron Lady fill the night. Every bump, every dip in the asphalt was a reminder of how much she relied on her instincts and her loyal companions. The dust cloud grew, shapes becoming vaguely human in the dim glow of headlights behind her. Jess's pulse accelerated, but she stayed calm. She had trained for situations like this, not just the road, but threats that came from recklessness and malice. Max and Roxy's synchronization was impeccable. Their readiness was a living shield. She tapped the dashboard, signaling them silently. They understood instantly, muscles tensing in preparation. The bikers spread out, trying to box her in, revving engines in a low, menacing chorus. Jess's eyes darted to the exits of the highway, any chance to maneuver, any opening to create distance. She knew speed alone wouldn't solve this. Control and precision mattered more than raw force. With a sharp turn off the main lane onto a side road, Jess leveraged her size and skill. Max and Roxy barked sharply, warning the bikers as she maneuvered. One biker attempted to cut her off, and Max leapt to the cab window, teeth bared. A perfect blend of threat and restraint. Roxy positioned herself to guard the rear, a silent enforcer ensuring no sudden attacks. The biker hesitated, faltering for a heartbeat that felt like eternity. Jess accelerated through the turn, gaining precious distance. The side road twisted through the fields, and Jess's mind raced. She had to keep moving, keep control, and make sure her presence, along with her dogs, was enough to dissuade any further harassment. The bikers were persistent. What she had learned long ago, that calculated restraint often won over reckless aggression. Her breathing slowed, though her senses remained alert. Max and Roxy settled slightly, though their eyes never left the road behind. Jess glanced in the rearview mirror. Shadows of motorcycles flickered in the distance, but the space between them grew. For the moment, she had gained the advantage, but as the moonlight reflected off the horizon, Jess noticed a faint silhouette forming ahead of a single motorcycle, separate from the dust cloud, moving deliberately toward her. Her stomach tightened. This wasn't over. Someone else, or perhaps the leader himself, had decided to test her once more. Max and Roxy's low growls confirmed it. The night had one more challenge in store, and Jess had to be ready. The distant silhouette on the highway lingered, a solitary figure cutting through the silver glow of the moon. Jess gritted her teeth, adjusting her speed, keeping the Iron Lady steady as Max and Roxy stayed alert in the sleeper cab. Their eyes scanned the darkness, ears twitching at every whisper of the wind. Jess's heart pounded, but she kept her hands firm on the wheel. There was no room for panic, only control. The side road twisted sharply, giving her a chance to put distance between herself and the mysterious rider. The highway patrol radio crackled faintly, static slicing through the night. Unit 12, confirm location. She pressed the button, keeping her voice calm but urgent. No immediate response came. She cursed under her breath, but stayed focused. The last thing she needed was overconfidence. Her adversary could be anywhere, testing her resolve, gauging her reaction. Finally, a flicker of neon lights appeared ahead, a small police station tucked just off the highway. Relief washed over her, but she didn't relax. Danger had a way of lurking even under the hum of fluorescent bulbs. She eased the rig into the parking lot, Max and Roxy alert, ears pricked and muscles taut. Jess exhaled, her tension coiling slightly as she opened the cab door. The officer on duty looked up, blinking at the side of the massive truck. The two alert German shepherds, and the woman standing with a presence that demanded attention. Evening, he said cautiously. Can I help you? Jess took a deep breath, letting the adrenaline settle just enough to speak clearly. I need to report harassment. A pack of bikers tried to corner me on Route 66. They were reckless, threatening, and dangerous. My dogs and I had to handle it until I could reach a safe location. She gestured toward Max and Roxy, who sat alert but calm. The officer's eyes widened slightly, a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Your dogs? He asked. Jess nodded. They're police trained, she explained. Not pets. They're trained to protect and respond to threats with precision. They were instrumental in keeping the situation from escalating further. She showed him the scratches on the truck, shards of glass from the bottle that had been thrown, and the faint dents from careless blows against the metal frame. The officer nodded, pulling out a notepad. "All right, ma'am, let's get this documented. Can you identify the bikers? Just describe them in detail, their appearance, patches on their jackets, their movements, everything she had observed." The officer typed quickly, occasionally glancing at Max and Roxy, who remained alert, watching the lot with sharp precision. "You handled that well," he said finally, his tone mixing respect and disbelief. Not many people could keep a cool head with multiple bikers threatening them on the road. And with dogs like these, you're practically untouchable. Jess allowed herself a brief, private smile. Praise was welcome, but she remained vigilant. Danger on Route 66 never fully disappeared, and as she handed over the detailed account, her instincts flared once again. Something felt off, a lingering presence, a shadow that didn't belong. She glanced toward the station's security monitors and froze. The leader biker's face appeared, captured by a nearby traffic camera. He was smirking, eyes calculating, as though plotting his next move. Jess's stomach tightened. The bikers may have retreated tonight, but he hadn't forgotten. Max growled softly, a low rumble of warning, while Roxy's ears twitched. Scanning the shadows outside the station, Jess crouched slightly to scratch behind Max's ears. "Yeah," she murmured, "he's still out there. But tonight, we've made our stand. And next time, he'll remember who he's dealing with." The officer returned, a serious expression on his face. "We'll launch an investigation first thing. Statements will be taken, evidence collected. If this gang causes trouble again, we'll be ready. And with you and your team, I don't think they'll forget it anytime soon." Jess nodded, standing tall once more. "It's not about intimidation," she said quietly, her gaze drifting toward the dark road. "It's about respect. Out there, the rules are simple. Respect the road. Respect the people who protect themselves. And respect the line that shouldn't be crossed." Max and Roxy shifted slightly, sensing Jess's readiness to move again. She looked at them and nodded, a silent acknowledgement of their loyalty and shared purpose. She knew the road would always hold danger, always test her limits, but with her dogs by her side, she felt invincible in ways beyond raw strength. As Jess prepared to leave the station, she noticed a faint shadow flit across the lot, a solitary motorcycle, stationary for now, engine barely audible in the distance. Her pulse quickened. The leader may have retreated earlier, but this lingering presence reminded her that the confrontation was far from over. Route 66 had one final challenge in store, and Jess, with Max and Roxy at her side, was ready to face it. Asterisk, the morning sun was just beginning to crest over the horizon, casting streaks of gold across Route 66. The rest stop and police station were behind her. But Jess knew the night's events were far from over. She climbed into the Iron Lady with practiced ease, Max and Roxy slipping into their positions in the sleeper cab, alert and ready. The air was cool, filled with the faint hum of the highway awakening from its nocturnal silence. Jess took a deep breath, letting the first rays of sunlight calm the lingering adrenaline. For hours, she had maintained complete control, countering intimidation with discipline, instinct, and the unwavering loyalty of her dogs. But she knew better than to assume the road would remain safe. Danger on Route 66 was never fully gone. As she rolled onto the highway, her eyes flicked to the horizon. In the distance, a lone motorcycle appeared, a shadow against the pale morning light. Her heart tightened. Could it be him? The leader, the one whose smirk had haunted the security footage at the police station. Jess gritted her teeth. She had no intention of letting this escalate further than necessary, but she was ready for whatever came. Max growled softly, a low, warning rumble, and Roxy's stance mirrored his. Jess's hand brushed the dashboard, a silent signal to her partners. Their coordination was flawless, born of countless hours of training and trust. She adjusted the mirrors, gauging the distance and trajectory of the approaching motorcycle. The rider's posture was deliberate, measured, no reckless charge this time, but a calculated approach. Jess allowed her rig to slow slightly, keeping the Iron Lady steady, her presence imposing even without raising her voice. Max barked sharply, Roxy joined in, their sound carrying authority across the highway. The biker hesitated, eyes flicking from Jess to the dogs. For the first time, doubt cracked the veneer of confidence. He had underestimated her once. He wouldn't again. With precise timing, Jess maneuvered her truck into a strategic position enough to show dominance. Without escalating confrontation, her voice, calm but firm, carried across the distance. "This is your final warning," she said. "Back off. The road is not yours to intimidate. You've been warned." The biker's wheels wobbled slightly as he assessed the situation. Max growled again, low and resonant, while Roxy shifted slightly, showing readiness to act instantly if needed. Jess could see the internal calculation in the biker's eyes, challenge or retreat, pride or survival. She stayed poised, radiating authority. Finally, the biker exhaled sharply, a motion of surrender more than frustration. With a rev of his engine, he swerved to the shoulder and disappeared down a side road, leaving the highway open and quiet once again. Jess exhaled, allowing a faint, victorious smile. The immediate threat was over, but the lesson had been made clear. She and her team would not be intimidated. Rolling further down the open highway, the sunlight began to illuminate the landscape, the vast plains stretching endlessly on either side. Jess felt the familiar hum of freedom and control returning, a reminder of why she loved the road. Max and Roxy sat alert, but relaxed slightly, their mission complete, their loyalty unwavering. Jess reached down to scratch Max behind the ears, murmuring softly, "We did good, boys. But stay sharp. The road never sleeps." Even as the calm settled, Jess remained vigilant. The bikers might be gone for now, but she knew danger could resurface. Yet, this night had changed something. She had faced intimidation head-on and emerged victorious. With skill, courage, and the unshakable loyalty of her partners, she had turned fear into strength. As the miles stretched ahead, the highway bathed in golden light, Jess reflected on the events. She had proven herself, not just to the bikers, but to anyone who underestimated her. The open road demanded respect, and she had claimed hers without compromise. As she rounded a bend, sunlight glinting off the horizon, Jess noticed a distant shadow on a ridge. A lone biker watching, perhaps testing, perhaps admiring. Her pulse quickened, but a confident smile touched her lips. Max and Roxy stood beside her, ears pricked, ready as ever. Jess's eyes narrowed with focus and determination. The road was unpredictable. Threats could appear anywhere, and the challenge never truly ended, but she was ready. Together with her dogs, she had claimed control of the road, and no one, no pack of bikers, would ever underestimate her again. The engine roared beneath her like a heartbeat of freedom, and Jess drove onward, fearless, vigilant, and unstoppable, the Iron Lady carrying her into the sunrise, a symbol of resilience, courage, and unbreakable determination.